Welcome. I'm Tim Brown with Brown Wealth Management, and welcome to the Heritage Design Planning Preparing the Next Generation webinar. I'm excited to talk with you today about this topic that I think is important to everyone who wants to leave a legacy that will last. And so let's get started. All right, first I'd like to introduce our team. And so we have Polly Ham on the left. She is a certified financial planner. Myself, and you have Stacy. She is our operations person, excellent at what she does. And we have Michael Urch on the right, and he is a certified financial planner. And so we have a 3-advisor team. And the great part about that is that when you work with us, you're not just getting one advisor, you're getting 3 advisors. We all work very closely together and work on all of our clients together. All right, the agenda today is we're going to talk about framing the issue on legacy planning. What is some history around it? We're going to talk about the heritage design steps, and we're going to wrap it up with some exercises I think you're going to find thought-provoking. All right, this is where I like to start. It's always important to review that there are 5 key areas of financial planning. There's preservation planning, retirement planning, tax planning, estate planning, and investment planning. And that's, if you're a comprehensive financial advisor, those are the 5 things that you do. Now, most of the advisors you're going to run into really just do number 5 there, investment planning. They just want to manage investments. They're not going to do all the other stuff, right? We do everything. So we're comprehensive. But in addition, I believe there's another step that people are missing completely, and that is the legacy planning step. If you think about it, these first 5 steps are all designed to grow your assets, help you have an incredible retirement, pay as little as possible in taxes, and pass that money on to your kids and grandkids. And so in essence, we're preparing the assets for the kids. What's not happening is we're not preparing the kids for the assets. And that's a big flaw in all the planning that's being done. You don't have to look very far to see what happens when kids inherit money, and what often happens. There's typically arguments about who got what. Maybe one person's basis was a little lower than the others, and that can cause arguments. There's so many ways for these estates to go poorly, and it can ruin relationships almost immediately in families. And if you think about it as a parent, what do you want your kids to be doing? You want to help them. You want them to be joyful and enjoying, the inheritance that you've left them and have happy lives, right? The last thing you wanted them to do was to blow the money and not talk to each other. Unfortunately, that is more the norm than not. So how can we fix that? And that's really what we're going to talk about today. And so one of the key questions we're going to focus on is, and please ask this of yourself, are you confident that your children and grandchildren are ready to protect, manage, and grow their inheritance? That is a key question. And then the next question really is, would you like to be confident? Would you like to be? And that's what we're going to help you with. So here's the opportunity that your family's assets and unity can be sustained from one generation to the next. Imagine 50 years from now that your family is together. What are they doing? What are they talking about? What would you like them to be doing, and what would you like them to be talking about? if you said you want them, if maybe the idea is you want them to be having wonderful lives and helping each other and having joy and talking and helping each other and being a family, it takes specific effort to do that. We need to start working on that right now to make that happen. It's really interesting. A lot of clients will say, well, wait a minute, this legacy planning stuff, isn't this something we should do, in 20 years? I'd say no, it's actually something you should be doing when the kids are still living in your house, because that's when it's going to take time. It takes time to do this, but you can absolutely do it. And you want to start when they're younger. Absolutely. It gives you more time, and you're going to see why that's important as we go through these slides. So here's the issue. There is a 90% failure rate on family unity and wealth across generations. What does that mean? It means these inheritance plans are almost guaranteed to fail. 90% of the time they fail. Like, Tim, that can't be, right? Because we hired these estate planners to create this incredible estate plan and document everything exactly the way we want it to happen. And that's true. They do a wonderful job at that. They pass the money on to your kids, reducing taxes. That's what it's designed to do. But the kids weren't prepared, more than likely. So we want to prepare them. So here's the fact. 70% of the time, the money and the unity is gone by the end of the second generation. 90% of the time by the end of the third generation. And you may have stories in your own family where that's true. I know I have that in mine. My grandfather had my understanding, he died 2 weeks before I was born, but he had a fabulous, successful lumber company. And he had his son-in-laws were working in the firm at the time, I guess my uncles. And about 15 years later, it had gone bankrupt. So gone. So it didn't even get through generation 2, didn't even get to generation 3. And that's more likely the norm than not. So the question I have for you is, have you heard that before? Have you heard that 70% of the time the money and the unity's gone by the end of the second generation and 90% by the end of the third generation? So 90% of the time, 90% of families fail to keep their families and fortunes together for more than 3 generations. And it's true in other countries. So 2,000 years ago in China, the quote was, "Wealth never survives 3 generations." In England, clogs to clogs in 3 generations. And that was in 1350. In Spain, in 1545, first generation trader, second generation gentleman, third generation beggar. In Germany, in 1700, seldom 3 descents, continue gut. In the United States in the 1800s, from shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. And in Brazil in the 1900s, from the stables to the stars to the stables in 3 generations. So the lesson here is, it doesn't matter from geography, culture, economies, governments, or tax structures. It doesn't matter. And why do the 90% fail? It's not due to lack of traditional financial and estate planning. It's due to transferring money rather than wealth. So this was an interesting survey. And I asked this question of you: what do you think will get you? And so this was actually the question that was posed to some large family family office clients. So big firms. And they asked their clients, what do you think is going to get you? What's going to get your family? And overwhelmingly, they said, well, investment strategy and risks is what's going to get us. Some said the economy and financial markets. Some said financial constraints. Oh, 7% said family dynamics and family relationships. So the question I have for you then is, how would you answer that? What do you think will get your family? So this study was done after, to get the answer to that. The Williams Group has done this study over the years. So they've got lots of data on this and they've updated it over time. And they actually talked to families, over 3,000 families who had failed to transition from the wealth from one generation to the next. In essence, they had lost the money and the family unity was broken. What does that mean? Maybe they're not talking to one another. That's in essence what it's saying. 60% said the reason was breakdown of family communication and trust. 25% said inadequately prepared heirs. 12% a failure to establish a family mission statement. Look at that. Only 3% said it was due to poor legal, tax, or investment advice. Completely flips over what people, from what people thought it would be the reason to actually what is the reason. And it's very consistent with what's happened over the years. So wealth is not just financial. So the question I have for you, and think about this, what is the most important thing in your life? Think about it. What comes to mind? What are some of the first things that come to mind? These are the things. It's not just money. In fact, more than likely, money's not in the top 5 for many people, maybe not in the top 10. Family, health, friends and relationships, your faith and spiritual beliefs, your skills, your experiences, your reputation, and causes that you support. So think about that and how you'd answer that. So what are the types of wealth or capital? So if we take a holistic view of wealth, several years ago, a guy named Jay Hughes wrote a book called Family Wealth, Keeping It in the Family. And in that book, he talked about the different types of wealth or capital in a family beyond the financial wealth, including human capital, intellectual capital, and social capital. How many of these are you familiar with? Have you ever heard of these? What's interesting is that they came up with this legacy wealth. And legacy wealth is what they found is really what pulls that all together. And really what legacy wealth is it's your stories. It's your stories of your childhood, of your growing up, and as you, all those struggles you went through. Maybe it's things you learned from your parents and grandparents, but that was really those stories and that family. The values are what pull this all together. It's called the legacy wealth. And so their definition is it's the mission, values, core purpose, and shared meaning that are the foundation of the family and its approach to wealth and relationships to each other. That's sort of the glue that holds all of it together. Doesn't just happen automatically. This is something you have to do very specifically and strategically. And so what is the prescription for the 90% rule? What do the successful 10% do that's different? The Heritage Institute is a firm that I'm partnering with, that has done a lot of research in this area. And they're training me in this, and now I'm trying to pass this on to my clients. Very excited about it. I actually wanted to go through this training over 10 years ago. Just timing never worked out. So fortunately, I've been able to get to the training recently, and now I'm passing that on to you as our clients. And so I'm very excited about this. You'll, if it resonates with you, please let me know, because I'd love to talk to you about it. So the keys to success: build communication and trust. There's ways to do that. Mentor and prepare the heirs. So these are your kids, your grandkids. We want to mentor them and prepare them, and there's ways to do that. Identify a common vision in alignment for your family. And so we do that. And developing a culture of communication, trust, and mentoring all around the family's common purpose. So we want to create that. We want to help the family come together and create that together. So what is the difference between heritage design and financial and estate planning? It's passing on who you are in addition to what you own. Oftentimes we pass on what we own, but we don't pass on the other parts. And so there's some specific things we can do to pass on who you are. And we call that the heritage design process. So let's look at the different steps here. So, well, here we go. Okay, so it starts really with the alignment conversation. And that's really just a conversation we'll have together. If this is important to you, if this is of interest to you, we'll have this conversation to find out what it is, what's important to you about that, why is it important, where you are today in achieving those, what are the steps you need to do to make that happen, how important it is, and what's the priority of it to you. And those are things we want to really uncover. And it doesn't take long for us to do that. And I look forward to having those conversations with many of you. All of these steps in green are the process. So we want to go through these steps, because then so for instance, here's the FAM, or it's the family alignment milestone. This is really a family meeting where we bring the family together and we go through some exercises. And the whole point of this is to improve the family communication and trust. And so that may be where we start. We're going to do an exercise, one of the exercises we do in this meeting a little later in just a few minutes, so you can sort of experience it right now. The guided discovery process is maybe this is the area you start in. We'll figure this all out in the alignment conversation. But this is where we guide you through a process to have you document your stories. So you verbalize your stories. I'm going to interview you and help you talk about, I'm going to record these conversations, and we're going to get all of your stories. I'm going to ask you stories about your childhood, about your parents, about your kids, about your mentors. And we're going to get lots of stories, and we're looking for those positive stories that you want to pass on to the next generation, that provide that, that shows your values. Maybe it's the struggles you went through when you were younger. And what's important about that is, you went through these struggles when you were possibly younger that helped create who you are today, created your character. And you're probably thinking, hey, I don't want my family to go through that. Oftentimes it's those struggles that create that character of who you are, and yet we're preventing our kids from experiencing, and you're not alone, right? I don't want my kids to struggle, so I want to help them. Well, unfortunately, by helping them, we're often hurting them. And sort of like the analogy here is, the monarch butterfly, right? It's in a cocoon, and it's slowly eating out of the hole out of that cocoon. And if you try to help it by opening it up, to help it get out quicker, it actually dies, because it has to struggle to get out, and that actually forces the blood into its wings so it can actually survive and grow and become into that beautiful butterfly. But if you help it, you actually hurt it. There's another Rod Zeeb. He started the Heritage Institute. He wrote a book called The Midas Curse, and I highly recommend that book if you're interested in that. And in that, he had several great stories about how important some of these things are. And one of the great stories in the book is about King Midas, right? This king, the mythological king, right? He loved gold. He just loved gold, couldn't get enough of it. Now, at one point in his life, he saved some god, and the god granted him a wish, and he said, "I'd like to, turn whatever I can into gold. Whatever I touch turns into gold." So he granted him that wish, and King Midas thought this was the greatest thing in the world, and he'd touch things and it turned to gold. And he just, he was super wealthy, right? And then his cat came into this room, his beloved cat, and jumped on his lap, and he touched it and he turned it into gold. And all of a sudden he realized the mistake he had made in wanting this wish when his daughter ran into the room and he was trying to say, stay away, stay away. And she jumped up into his arms, and he turned his daughter, the one thing that he truly loved in the world, into a statue of gold. And so it wasn't about all the gold that was important to him, is what he realized. It wasn't that at all. It was his daughter, his family, and his cat. I don't know. I guess he could have had a dog, but it was his cat. Another story in the book about there was a fire. There was a fire in this, a family lived on a street. They had an ideal sort of house, probably similar to a lot of us. We have a house, we have kids, and kids, it's just perfect, on a cul-de-sac, and the kids are having a great childhood. And one night there's a fire and the house burns down. Fortunately, or there's a fire, and they have to get out of the house so they get out of the house, and the kids get out, the wife gets out, and Jack, the dad, he gets out, and he's thinking, he looks back, and there's flames coming out of the windows, and he says, there's time for me to get in. I think I can get one load I think I can get in there and get some stuff. And he's running into the house, and flames are everywhere, and he realizes he only has seconds before the house comes down, and he's running down. He's trying to think through, what does he get? Does he grab his computer? Does he get that box of, he's got a box of financial records, of years and years of financial records. Does he need to get that? And as he's running down the hallway, he's realizing in this hallway, they've lived in this house for 10 years, and he's running down this hallway, and on each side of the hallway are pictures of 5 generations of his family, and him and his wife's family, 5 generations, all along the wall. They had pictures all along the wall. And he's thinking, oh my gosh, I've lived here for 10 years. I've gone up and down this hallway over and over and over again. And I kept meaning to get these pictures copied or scanned or whatever, and I never did it. Why didn't I do that? And he's coming into the other room, and he's realizing, okay, what do I grab? I've got like milliseconds to choose. Do I get the laptop? Do I get the box of financial records? Do I get the family silver that's been in the family for generations? He runs out of the house. Arms are full. And his wife sees him, and she sees what he's carrying. And she hugs him, and he sees his family there. They're all safe. What do you think he grabbed? What do you think he took out of the house? What would you take out of the house? It comes down to, what are your values, right? It's what is important. And you realize, hey, we're going to have to rebuild this house. All right, great. So the guided discovery is the idea. Got off track there a little bit. Guided discovery is the idea of documenting all of your values, those important lessons, those stories. And we're going to do an audio of that. We'll probably videotape it if you want a video. Just think of that. Generations from now, you'll be able to pass on these incredible stories from your life, and they don't just get to read them, they get to actually see you telling the stories. Here's the interesting thing, is what the research has shown is that kids that know their family's story and their parents' stories are more resilient. So you're basically the struggles that you went through, if you can document those and hand them off to your children, it becomes their story. They don't have to go through that. How many times have we, gosh, I don't know how many times I tell my kids, hey, listen to dad. I've been through a few of these things you're going through. Learn from our advice, learn from our history. And this is a way for you to pass it on to future generations. The heritage statement is we take that document. So in essence, after we go through this guided discovery process, we actually have it put into, potentially even a professional writer put it together into a very nice story, so something that's a little bit more formal that we can pass on to generation. The initial heritage milestone then becomes a meeting where the family comes together to celebrate the work that they've done as a family. And it may be the unveiling of your heritage statement, that maybe we figured out in this family alignment meeting that the kids need to do some work on their own. And so we're going to review that in that meeting and celebrate the process that they've made. And here's the great thing, the family gets to decide the next step. This is not mom and dad telling them what they need to do. That's what's critical here. Everyone comes into these family alignment meetings as equals. And that's often what's needed. Mostly if you've got older kids, that's why it's great to have it when they're younger but anyway, older kids, it works well too. And you could have in-laws there as well. So it depends on the family. It could be a big meeting, it could be a small meeting. But everyone's equal. Everyone has an equal say in what goes on. And do we move forward as a family together? How do we move forward? You all get to have a part in saying what the future of your family looks like. After this is done, this is where a lot of the work starts, you start seeing the fruit of all this work in these ongoing heritage milestones, where you start mentoring the next generations and they start leading these meetings. So you might have your kids say, hey kids, obviously older kids, right? You're going to help plan this next meeting. Maybe it's planning where they need to go. And so you start passing on that, you're mentoring the kids to do those. And in each of those meetings, we may have different topics we focus on, from listening, creating empathy, family leadership, personal and family development, and teamwork. And so it's a process that the family starts going through, and you're in essence preparing your kids and grandkids to receive the inheritance that you'll be leaving them. And the collaborative team on the left here, we may need to bring in some experts. Don't know, you may need to bring in your financial advisor, right? That would be me, right? So may need to bring in that person, may need to bring in an estate planning attorney to talk about what's in this estate planning document, et cetera. So we want to bring in people who can help us. So we'll have to see. Everybody's different. Every family is different in terms of complexity and needs. And so that's why we want to have this alignment conversation to see, where do we start? All right, excellent. So this is an exercise we call the person of influence. And so this is something that we would do in the guided discovery process. So person of influence. So here's, if you have paper and pencil, this is an opportunity for you to experience this. Or you can just record it. Think about a person who was a mentor, who had a significant influence in your life. and write that person's name down. What difference did they make in your life? There's probably kids, the other part of this is we're not just looking, and it's just, that's pretty broad. We might want to narrow it down to grade school. You probably have specific people that you remember in middle school or high school, maybe in college, that had just an incredible impact on your life and changed your life and maybe taught you lessons. And those are values that you want to pass on to your kids. Going through this process, my wife and I have done this, is as you start talking through these stories that you haven't thought about for years, you start realizing what you learned from those experiences and how your life is now different as a result of that. We want to document that. How are you different now because of your interaction with that person? What did you learn from them? How did you learn it? Where did you go? Where were you? How did your experiences with them affect your life? Do your children know that story? Did you tell them the lesson, or did you tell them that story? What value would it be to them and to you if they knew the story? And if they haven't heard your story, would it be valuable for them to hear it? What benefit would it be to them to hear it now? And is the story written down? If not, when do you plan to write it? Now you can do this. You can definitely do this on your own. Lots of resources out there on how to document these stories and so forth. What I've realized is no one does it. And it's often takes someone, a third party, to be able to prompt you and walk you through all of these stories and get it done and help you with that. And so that's what we do. All right, the personal shield exercise is from one of the exercises we do in your family alignment meeting, if you choose to do that, to help bring that unity to the family and increase communication. And so the personal shield, let's look at the exercise. To do this, you draw a shield. So one thing, if you have a piece of paper, you can draw a circle over a shield or a box with 4 quadrants, just put lines to the middle. And then in each quadrant, identify 4 things, or one in each quadrant, that you personally want to be known for. What are the values and attributes you want to be known for? So in this family meeting, we're going to have everybody do this. And then we share those values and start documenting this. So we want to use, so you can write one of those values in each of those quadrants, pictures, symbols, phrases, etc. And here's the cool thing, as the family, you can come together and create your family shield. And here's just an example of one. And this family, faith was one of the values they want to be known for. Learning, fun and adventure, loyalty. And they cheated a little bit. They put a 5th one over here. Maybe they could, they couldn't get it down to 4, but they got it down to 5. Put generosity as a wrapper that goes around the outside. Now, if you have an artist in your family, this is a great way to, in essence, let them be part of that and, use their artistic talent to make an incredible shield. So I highly recommend you do that. Each one of you do that, and I can help you with those. So intergenerational wealth transfer. The question is, are you confident that your children and grandchildren are prepared to manage, control, and grow the inheritance they will receive? What would it mean to you if you had that confidence? For many of us, this is a question that keeps us up at night. So we want to help you with that. So if this resonates with you in any way, please, let's schedule a call. So let me know. And we'll schedule that call for what we call an alignment conversation. There's no charge for that. And we'll help you determine your next steps if appropriate. Again, I don't want to sell this at all. It's got to be something you want to do. From my perspective, it's a huge, almost priceless gift that you can give your family. So in general, as working with us as your financial advisor, what can you expect from us? Well, we provide regular reviews, a review of changes that may affect you. We provide regular, frequent communication, review of economic, tax, estate, and all other financial planning issues for our clients. We help you meet your goals. So here's a client benefit. As a client of our firm, you can add names to our viewing list for these workshops. We'd love to have them, your friends, be included. Friends, family, we want to help them. We want to be a resource to you, for your family, friends, coworkers, and colleagues. So here's a disclosure. Always have to have disclosures. We're a fee-only firm. We don't get commissions. We want to give advice that's not in any way influenced by commissions. Thank you for joining us today. I appreciate the opportunity to assist you with your financial needs, and your health and well-being is always our highest priority. Your health matters. Thanks for coming today.